After a 6-month hiatus, it's time to start turning that wheel and get back to cheering them to veering. Let's talk some Wheel of Time. Are you real? The voice said at last, wonderingly. That denial of Rand's existence was as usual as refusing to answer. Am I? I spoke to someone. I think I did. Inside a box, a chest. Am I dead? Or mad? Or both? No matter. I am surely damned. I am damned, and this is the pit of doom. Rand muted the voice to an insect's buzz, something he had learned while cramped into the chest, alone in the dark. Just him and the pain, and the thirst, and the voice of a long-dead madman. The voice had been a comfort sometimes, his only companion, his friend. Something flashed in his mind. Not images, just flickers of color and motion. For some reason they made him think of Matt and Perrin. The flashes had begun inside the chest. Them and 1,000 more hallucinations. Hey, what's up, bookworms and wheelies? We are back after a long hiatus to talk about The Wheel of Time, and more specifically, Book 7 of The Wheel of Time, A Crown of Swords by Robert Jordan. Now, if you guys are new to the channel, or this is the first time you find the channel, I have reviewed all of the Wheel of Time books up to this point. It is my first read-through of this series. And unlike other videos on this channel where I've kind of started leaning towards non-spoiler, all my Wheel of Time book videos are full spoiler because I have to talk about that. I have to decompress. I have to get these things out to you and talk to you guys about this stuff because there's so much to talk about. And if I try to do like non-spoiler on this, it would be completely boring. So if you have not read the first 7 Wheel of Time books, turn back now and read the book and come back and talk to me about there. So also you might want to avoid the comments section because I allow full spoilers in the comments section because this channel is all about discussion. This will also be longer than most of my videos on this channel. They usually tend to be about in between 12 to 20 minutes long. The Wheel of Time ones usually go close to a half an hour. And since it's been such a long break on this one's probably going to be a little bit longer than you probably would expect. But look, guys, I'm happy to be back in this. Honestly, Wheel of Time's kind of the reason that I started this channel. I never really intended to start a BookTube channel. I was making my Wheel of Time videos as kind of a video diary, if you would, to kind of help me be able to use as a reference and go back to, when you're reading a series this long, say, hey, did that happen in this book? Where did that happen? What happened in that book? I could always go back to them and reference them. But, I got such good feedback. I was like, wow, people actually like to hear me talk about books, which is really weird to me. But, hey, I'm glad you do. And it gave me a chance to talk to people about these things that, that wouldn't read this series or wouldn't read any of the books, really, that I read. So that's kind of a brief origin story on how the channel got started. So, yeah, I have Wheel of Time and you guys to thank for that. Why I took a break is obviously I had heard so much about this Slog that some people say is there, some people don't say is there. That's not really the argument, but just saying I had heard plenty about books 7 through 10 and the mixed reaction and kind of how the story slowed down there. I never really meant to read 14 of these in a row. I mean, these are tomes. I mean, these are huge. So I always knew that I would take a break. I read the first 4 like back to back to back to back, like in a 5 weeks, I think it took me to read the first 4 books. And I said, okay, this is when I was starting my my first Law reread, and I was doing that leading up to the release of A Little Hatred. And you can find all those on the channel, by the way, if you haven't. First Law, great series. Video for another time. And so I said, okay, I want to take a break, read some of those. I read the trilogy. Then I went back and I read Fires of Heaven and Lord of Chaos. And that's where I said, okay, now I want to take an extended break and kind of make sure that I avoid any possible burnout. I wasn't burned out, but I just felt like there was a possibility of it getting there if I didn't slow down and pump the brakes. Never meant to take as long of a break as I did, but there was just so much more that I wanted to read. And, when you read a Wheel of Time book, it kind of dominates everything. And that's what we're going to get into here. So I think that taking that break actually helped me quite a bit, because this is where everybody says the story kind of slows down a little bit, regardless if you feel the slog is real or not. The story apparently slows down to a little bit. And I approached this with like a renewed vigor and energy. And I think that may be why I read this book. And, like it takes me about a week usually to read a Wheel of Time book with, I've got kids, I've got school, I got all kinds of stuff going on in real life. But yeah, that's why I took a quick break. But I'm happy to be back. Almost 6 months since I read The Lord of Chaos. Had to actually go back and watch my own videos just to make sure I remembered everything. There is about 8 bazillion names in this series, so there's some names that I had to kind of refresh in my memory to try to remember. There's one in this book that like I jogged on my mind for a while and I couldn't remember. I had to actually go to a non-spoiler app that I have on my phone where you can put what number book you're in and type in a character's name, and it'll tell you what they've done up to that point. And that was Leah, by the way. I'll get to that. At the end of this book. But like I said, guys, this is going to be full spoiler. This is your last spoiler warning. It's going to be all spoilers from here on out. What I will do is I will kind of run through the quick beats of the story and kind of what I was feeling as it was going on. I'll follow that up about how I felt about what each character, the main characters that I like to focus on in this. And then it kind of get into my pros and cons, my likes and do not likes of the book. So obviously we start with the aftermath of Dumai's Wells, which, at this point it's like, wow, how can you get much bigger than that, right? We even see it from the Shido standpoint, which I thought was kind of an interesting thing, even though I have no interest in Verana whatsoever. Whatever. I don't have any interest in her at all, but it was kind of interesting seeing it from their point of view, and really we're covering from the aftermath of that event, and we get Perrin. Perrin is like back from the dead all of a sudden. He has the first 6 chapters in this book, so right off the bat I'm thinking, okay, hey Perrin, that's my dude. I'm excited. I'm liking where this is headed. Honestly, I can't tell you anything Perrin did in those chapters except worry about his wife. He's worried about Fael, which seems to be his point in this. I kind of feel like Perrin is slowly in this series starting to turn into like what Cyclops did in the original X-Men movies by Fox, where Cyclops' point in that movie was just to be Jean Grey's boyfriend. I'm starting to feel like Perrin is just there to be Fael's husband. And that's not really what made Perrin shoot straight to the top of my Wheel of Time rankings. Well, which I've never officially actually made. I just said, that Perrin was kind of sitting at the top of my ranking since Lan disappeared from the story. More on that later. But yeah, again, that's it. They have their reunion. It's kind of ho-hum. But the big deal here is that Perrin and Rand meet Cadsuane, which is a very, very big... I want to believe this is going to be an important character. I don't know. Big characters seem to come and go in this series so brief, but I'd actually heard the name Cadsuane before I'd even gotten here before, which makes me think she's more than just like a one-off character. So and also, if you have the Kindle ebook, you actually see that she is actually on the cover. So I figured this is a very important character, okay? So, she asks him if he's hearing the voices in his head, and that kind of brings him back in from the, because obviously he is, Perrin is noticing him talking to himself, and Rand is slightly going, well, not slightly, he's more rapidly starting to go insane now, which I think has been a nice slow build. It wasn't overnight, but it's starting to be unavoidable at this point. Sorry, I got dog hair. Don't get a black lab, dude. Their hair's like this long. So right off the bat, you're thinking, okay, Cadsuane's someone important. I gotta watch you. But I gotta say, Min is a character that I've kind of in videos in the past, if you watch those, know that I said I don't understand why the fandom likes Min. I feel like you could give her viewing ability to one of the other Supergirls and kind of excise Min from the story, and nothing would change. I felt like she didn't really bring anything. This is the book where I finally actually think, not only do I think Min belongs here, I think Min might be my favorite of those. Now, for reference sake, the Supergirls are what I call Egwene, Nynaeve, and Elaine, just because they got so many chapters there together for a while. And, they're the most powerful things ever, right? So I just call them like the Supergirls. And I kind of started adding Min and Avienda to that. But it really, when I say Supergirls, I'm more referencing them. But if you're talking about that group of ladies in this book, Min obviously is a very important one, and like I said, she kind of establishes, she kind of keeps them from going loony in this book, and I kind of appreciate that. And it wasn't just that, I feel like they actually built on the relationship. Before it was like, oh, I saw in a viewing that I'm going to fall in love with you, so I guess I'm in love with you, and I felt like it just wasn't earned. And I feel like they actually started to build upon a positive relationship here. They're actually intimate with each other, which actually starts this weird trend of like this book getting real rapey. And I hate to use that term loosely, but I don't know how else to put it. And not particularly here because, Rand just kind of apologizes. I guess he thinks he raped her. And she's like, no, it takes two to tango, my man. And but I really, really did appreciate the relationship to the point where out of the three romance interests there, Elaine, Avienda, and Min, I think Min's actually my favorite of those for Rand as far as a pairing goes right now. I'll get into my thoughts on Elaine in a little while. And Avienda, it was okay. I thought that the establishing the relationship between them was okay. It was kind of slow. Whereas Elaine, it's like, oh, she's real pretty, and she's a queen, or she's going to be a queen, so I love her. This is the first one where I felt like, okay, I actually buy this emotional bond between these two. So I do have notes here, guys, because there's too much for me to remember off the top of my head, like I usually do with a book review. We catch up with Morghese. She's still being held by the prisoner by the Children of the Light. And again, sticking with the raping theme, I believe that Aemon Volda is raping her. I don't believe she's sleeping with him willingly. But what I say about Jordan is where I said it's PG-13. He doesn't put it out in your face. It's just not a PG-13 story to me. It is a very adult story. Jordan is the type of author that will describe the world to you, and when it gets into the nuts and bolts of the uncomfortable stuff, he kind of leaves it to your imagination, almost like Sanderson does. Obviously, we know that Sanderson, this is what he grew up on, so this is what the lessons. That's what the comparison I put between them is that just because you think that Brandon Sanderson is PG-13 doesn't mean those things are happening. Aren't happening off of the reader's pages. He's not Abercrombie. He's not Martin. He's not going to describe every little disgusting, uncomfortable detail to you. And God bless it. I love it when they do that. But I think it's fine here. But he does insinuate that is happening. But look, I'm going to be honest. I think Morghese is the only unbearable. That is the only sloggy thing in this book. Is Morghese's chapter. I could not wait for it to be over. I don't need any more Morghese POV chapters. I really don't see what purpose she serves anymore. She abdicated her throne. To who? To like the closet? Does that make it real? If anyone hears it, I don't know. She's thinking about flinging herself out the window, and I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of hoping it would happen. I feel like her story is over. I don't really need, and I definitely don't need any more POV chapters. But Matt is the bread and butter of this book, and I'm so excited because I've said in videos past that I don't understand why the fandom is so high on Matt. When I was like, I just feel like he hasn't done anything yet. This is the book where we finally get development for Matt. We get, I believe, the most POV chapters in the book belong to Matt, and I enjoy every single one of them. Other than telling me that the dice are tumbling in his head every 30 words, his chapters are fantastic and my favorite part of this book. But it's also where things get a little weird. He's with the Supergirls, just Nynaeve and Elaine right now. Egwene's in this book for one purpose, and I'll get to that in my pros and cons. That's why I'm not going to talk about it too much here. But you got I believe I don't listen to audiobooks, guys. If I get names or places wrong here, try to take it easy on me. Ibudar? Is that where they are? They're in Ibudar. They're looking for they're on this whole side quest, as I call it, to look for this Bowl of the Winds. And while Matt is there, he becomes the object of infatuation with Queen Tylan. And he refuses her advances more than once, and he's been quite the ladies' man at this point. So it's like, okay, wow, hey, there's one woman you actually, aren't into, obviously, for reasons. But after he rebukes her a couple times, she actually holds him at dagger point and forces him to have sex with her. And I'm like, wow, with the rape. Wow. Last book, we had Rand getting emotionally raped, as I put it, with Alana forcing a bond between them without his consent. And now we've got dagger point rape. And it's not the only time it happens in this book. I'll get into it a little more in depth in my likes and do not likes, but I don't even know what to say about these. These are some of the most uncomfortable chapters in the book, to a point to where, like, I finished that chapter, I went to bed, and when I woke up, it was the first thing I was thinking about. I was like, yeah. So it was I'm definitely glad he is not the type of author that really dwells on these things. What's left? I feel like what makes that situation even weirder is that, Matt kind of befriends her son, Beslin, and he's like all afraid Beslin's going to like stab him when he finds out. And then Beslin's like not only knows about it, but he's like okay with it and kind of encourages it and says, my mom usually never has time for a pretty. And I'm like, what is wrong with you people? But like I predicted in my Lord of Chaos review, Mo Gideon is out to get Nynaeve now that she's actually loose again. Nynaeve has showed her up a couple times in these books. She beat her in a duel. She put the bracelet on her, all that stuff. So she had been controlling her, and now that she's free, yeah, she goes back and she gets back at Nynaeve. She sinks her ship. The Balefire thing, guys, is getting real confusing to me, and I'll talk about that more in the ending. But she sinks her boat with Balefire. You think, oh, okay, Nynaeve's not going to die. Jordan hasn't spent all this time on Nynaeve just to kill her in such a stupid way. And it gives an opportunity for him to reunite Nynaeve with Lan. So look, yay, Lan is back. Boo, he has like a dozen lines in this book, if that. And honestly, I'm okay with it here because I feel like it's ending what is the most milquetoast and boring love story in this book. I remember in Eye of the World where I said I felt like it came out of nowhere, where he's like, oh, I'll love no other, and I'll love whoever has you kind of thing, and hate him the same. You know the line I'm talking about. Where I felt like that came out of nowhere, because when you even got you got like the POV chapters of Nynaeve in Eye of the World, she was like, oh, I hate these guys, I hate them. And then the next chapter is like, oh, I love you. At the end there, it's like, oh, I love you. And I'm like, okay. So I know people have told me this, that Robert Jordan's forte is not writing romance. I can accept that. There's a lot of authors like that. Like when Stephen King tries to do it, sometimes I'm like, not your forte, brother. But he dwells on it so much that I'm like, maybe he thinks he is. I don't really know. Wonderful writer, do not misunderstand me. But I feel like his love stories... But I did like the men one in this one. I did like the men and Rand one in this one. So, got some good with the bad there. Let's see... Okay, so Elaine and Nynaeve meet these non-practicing Aes Sedai, I guess, are called the Kin. Basically, it's like people who have left the tower. But they're interesting enough. Again, I'm just not down with like Nynaeve and Elaine chapters. They're kind of dull. I don't feel like they're like the Morghese chapter or something like that, but I just thought they were okay. The most fun I had out of that was... Elaine is kind of bonding with Aviendha, and she wants to know more about the Aiel culture. Wow, too many L's. And so she's like real interested in Tow. She finds out about something that... This is something in my Dragon Reborn review that I brought up, where Matt rescues them, and they treat him like dirt. They're just like completely like, oh, we had to figure it out without you. We didn't need your help. And, Elaine finds out about this, and she's like, oh, or Aviendha finds out. She's like, you guys need to apologize. And Elaine's all about learning Tow and all this stuff. So she's like, okay, we need to apologize. Of which Nynaeve, the only thing that Nynaeve does better than just be mean is be bad at apologizing, apparently. Because she goes one step close to basically apologizing for apologizing. She's so bad at it. And it's quite amusing because I found out that apparently it bothered me more than it bothered Matt. Because after they apologized to him, he just kind of blows off like, oh yeah, that was nothing. Don't worry about it. And it kind of just, I don't know. It might have just been something he did because he knew it would get under Nynaeve's skin, but it was kind of an amusing time. That was kind of my favorite part before they actually go to find the whole bowl after they. So it kind of takes a long way to getting to that, but you knew that was kind of going to be in the third act. And I've always said that I feel like the problem with these books is that the first act is great, the third act is incredible, and the middle act kind of drags a little bit. But that doesn't change here. But I feel like it's. I feel like Fires of Heaven's middle act was slower than this one's middle act. And I know that's kind of controversial to some people, because I know a lot of people put Fires of Heaven in their top 3 of this whole series, where I was kind of mixed on it. So they go after the bowl, and they get in this big fight with this thing called a golem, which is basically like a snake, I guess. It can kind of go through a snaky shadow. It's kind of like described as like if a snake was a person. So it doesn't have any bones, so it can go through like door cracks and stuff like that. And it just like, I can't remember the guy's name. There's so many names in here, Nielsen, something like that. It just like rips its throat out. It's one of Matt's guys from the Red Hand. It just like rips his throat out. And it's really brutal, and it messes Matt up a little bit. But he's able to fight it off. I find out that his fox medallion can actually hurt him. So he actually used that to chase the thing off. But it's a really good fight scene, really really great, and it's probably the most fun I've had with a fight scene in these books since Rand dueled Turok in book 2 with the Blade Master, where he actually fights him with the swords at the end. That was probably my second favorite fight scene written by Jordan in this, maybe even more than, say, Moraine and Lanfear. God, so many names. So many names, especially after you take a break. But it was a good time. It was kind of weird when they get back and Matt's trying to tell them about the golem, which he actually found out the whole history from Brigitte. And I'll talk about their relationship a little later. And they just, of course, they just ignore it. But it seems like, okay, you keep saying you want Matt to help out, but every time he does, you guys just kind of blow him off like he's no big deal. So Matt's ready GTFO after what's going on with Highland, and even though he has like a little bit of Stockholm syndrome, which made that whole thing even more infuriating, confusing, disgusting, weird. But he goes to look for Oliver so they can get out of town because Matt's like insta dead now. Apparently, he's telling these girls what to do. He's taking care of Oliver, stuff like that. But and he gets caught in the middle of the Shan-Chan invasion. So I was like, okay, awesome. You build up the Shan-Chan so much in book 2, and then they kind of disappeared. So I'm glad that they actually are back, and they seem to they've taken Amadisia, and now they're going to be taking Ibudar, and Matt is actually cursing his luck as a wall falls down on him, ending his story for now. If I knew that if I hadn't known that the fandom was so over the top, just like in love with Matt, I would have thought, okay, maybe he did die. I don't know, but obviously not. Obviously not. But let's get back to Rand now. For whatever reason, he decides he's going to go squash this noble rebellion in Carrion. If it was alluded to in earlier books, I just forgot because I just kind of felt like it was out of left field, out of nowhere. And while he's there, he decides, hey, I'm going to have a sparring sword match with Torum. Weird. But as this is going on, Padon Fane finally shows back up, and he's got the ruby-hilted dagger, and he comes up and he slashes Rand right where he got his old wound. And I was kind of blown away at first because I'm thinking, I remember when Matt sliced that dude in the Great Hunt, and he basically turned him into basically overripe avocado in a matter of seconds. So I'm confused on the whole healing process here, but they're able to kind of slow it down. Maybe someone can explain this in the comments. I know they're talking about the new wound and the old wound and how they're like fighting each other, but they're turning away from each other. Got kind of confusing to me. I'm sure this is something that's going to come up in later books. So he's got 2 new wounds, or he's got 2 bad, evil wounds. He's got 2 Frodo kind of the Shadow Blade, Wraith Blade stab wounds now, I guess. I don't know. I feel like those 2 are there kind of playing thumb war or whatever. But if someone can explain that a little better to me, I kind of didn't even understand. Again, there's so many names of so many Ashaman and Aiel and Wise Ones and all this. I'm starting to get some of these names confused. I don't really recall. I know Cadswain like heals him at first, which probably saved his life, but then there's 2 other people, and I didn't even write their names down because I forgot them. But basically, he gets healed, and when he recovers, he decides, hey, you know what? It's time to end this shit with Samael. So he decides he's going to go invade Ilion, finally. He chases Samuel to Shadar Logoth, and he runs into Leah, which, like I kind of said in the intro, I kind of had to wrestle with remembering who this was. I believe it was someone who got left behind when they were trying to close the Waygate in one of the earlier books. That's kind of what I got in the little recap app that I was talking about. And I guess she got lost there after they left, and she's kind of feral at this point. She's fighting Trollocs. Rand tries to talk to her, and she's just like yelling and screaming. And he goes looking for her, and then like Samael's attacking him. He starts to get in trouble, and then he's helped by this stranger who says something like, you're lucky I'm not ready for you to die yet. And I'm not really sure what's going on here, who this is or anything. And then it gets a little more confusing because Rand tries to balefire Mashadar, the entity that's in Shadar Logoth, and the stranger does the same thing. And then they have like this kind of crossing the beams Ghostbusters thing. I read it twice to try to understand what was going on here. I'm still not exactly sure what happened. I was starting to think maybe Rand was having like a Fight Club moment, and this was kind of his out-of-body experience with his alter ego, because I thought it was Lews Therin. I thought maybe it was Lews Therin, because Min had that viewing about, the 2 of you are gonna one of you is gonna die, and he thinks she's talking about Lews Therin. I wasn't really sure who it was, and then I started thinking, okay, this is really weird, because Rand talks about how he didn't sense any Saidin in him. And I'm like, okay, so is he using the true power? And so it's kind of crazy. The first thing I thought of is, holy crap, is this what happened to Asmodean, or is it Asmodean? I don't know. I said Asmodean while I read it. And I know that's kind of a crazy theory, because I just want to know what happened to Asmodean so bad. But But I'm pretty sure that's a long shot. It's more likely Moradin, because Jordan spends, I think, 2 to 3 chapters in this kind of building this Moradin character up. And other than him holding Nynaeve's mind trap, I didn't really know very much about him. And, in his eyes, you could tell it's kind of like a Lightbringer where you got the broken halo kind of thing in your eyes where you've used so much of the true power. But the stranger splits. Matt. Rand sees he sees Samael and he's about to attack him, but he sees that Leah is actually getting tortured by Mashadar, and he decides to balefire her as a mercy killing. And then he turns to kill Samael, and it looks like Mashadar's got him, so he assumes that Mashadar has killed him. I'm like, hey, you haven't seen a body. The person usually isn't dead. That's why I don't think Moraine's completely dead yet, and definitely not Lanfear. But it's good enough for Rand. He gets out of Dodge. He makes his way back to Ilion. He finds the people and the Council of Nine ready to crown him the King of Ilion. I think is it Corlin Deshiva? Is that his name? Ashaman proclaims him King of the World. And you're like, okay, this doesn't have a heel turn potential at all. Because Rand does like the whole like Napoleon thing. And he, instead of having like a procession or anything, he puts that crown on his own head. And like I said, all I could make me think of was like Napoleon did that. And that's kind of where it goes as credits roll there. It's hard for me not to think, okay, absolute power corrupts absolute. Obviously, I know that Rand is probably not going to go evil, but I'm thinking maybe he might start to struggle a little bit because he has gotten more and more, not only insane, but a little more cocky as each way is going on. Like every time someone like doubts something, he's like, bitch, I'm the Dragon Reborn, So it was kind of a dark-ish ending. I mean, you want to be like, okay, hey, awesome, our guy's winning, right? Well, yeah, but so it's kind of weird. Kind of feel like I'm playing both sides there. But what I said at the end of Lord of Chaos was that I felt like Rand is starting to be a little too overpowered. He's already the Dragon Reborn. He's got Matt in the Red Hand. He's got the Aes Sedai on his side now. After they bent the knee to him, he's got the Ashaman. I'm like, at what point is he just unbeatable? So I really expected him to get kind of knocked down a peg in this. Now he's King of Ilion, maybe King of the World. Who knows? I'm starting to be like, I'm only halfway done with this, and we got half the series left to get to the last battle. Dude just kind of flex off Forsaken every time he sees him now, so I'm starting to be like, is this even going to be a good fight? So something's got to happen to knock him down a peg. So like we always do, I'm going to kind of run through the main characters here and talk about what I really stood out for me in them in this book. Rand obviously struggling with the Sandy Moor, arguing with Luce Theron. I kind of wanted more of that. I really liked that when he was in the box in book 6. So I kind of wanted more of that. There's little bits, it's more of, things like Luce Theron like humming in his head when he sees Barrel Lane, stuff like that, So it's fine. I wanted more. I kind of want them. I liked that they kind of worked together in the last book, and I thought that we would get more of that in this one. I think that was why immediately in the Shadar Logos scene, I thought for sure that was him just having an out-of-body experience, and that was actually Luce Theron, and it wasn't actually there. Like I said, a whole Fight Club thing. But really, I say my favorite part, really, with Rand in this was his relationship with Min. I felt like they really, really built a good relationship, and he's joining Land now with the panty melting lines here. I want to read this quick passage here. Light. How long since he had laughed with pleasure. Min, I say she's as pretty as you, but how can you compare 2 sunrises? For a moment she stared at him with a small smile, as if she could not decide whether to be surprised or delighted. You are a very dangerous man, Rand al'Thor, she murmured, leaning toward him slowly. He thought he might fall into her eyes and be lost. Dang, Jordan, respect. I'm liking that. So, like I said, she actually is my favorite leading lady in the book at this point. She's definitely, if I didn't have it spoiled for me, and I won't spoil it for you here, I would hope if I'm picking one of these girls here that Min is the one that Rand is eventually going to end up with. I feel like they've got the best chemistry. She seems to be the one who actually cares about him the most. And while I said my problem was I felt like it was kind of out of nowhere in previous books, this felt earned. It really did. It felt earned. She's kind of been, staying with him and stuff like that. So, hey, she's taking care of him. And I feel like she's a big reason why he's not kind of going off the deep end. She's kind of keeping him grounded. And that's very, very important for a character like this at this point in a story like this. So, put me in Team Rand and Min. Matt, this is finally the Matt book that I've been waiting for. You know, we got in his head. We finally got to see what he's thinking, what he's doing. And he just seems like the last character in this that's like, guys, use your head. Think. I mean, I know he's got he's got this wise experience of all these previous generations and stuff now, and I don't know if that's much is with it, but his action scenes are fun. His dialogue is fun. I'm just having a great time whenever I turn the page and I see it's a Matt chapter. All right, I'm reading this one. I'm not putting the book down right now. So yeah, the payoff was worth it. I'm having a great time with Matt. And I think that's why it broke my heart to see what he was going through with Thailand. It was just rough for me. And, you know, it's like, oh, he pinches maidens' bottoms and stuff like that. Oh, that ain't worth getting raped at dagger point. And I'll get into it in my likes and dislikes about how I didn't like how that whole resolution happened at the end. Perrin, my boy, he's really front-loaded in this book and then pretty much absent. Once again, he's just kind of there. He's just worried about his jealous wife, and I believe it was a staged fight between him and Rand, where he gets banished. I don't think it was implicitly stated if it was staged, but I believe it was staged so he can go, recruit more. And I don't know, there's so many good characters that I'll get to the other ones in a minute, and it just he's just kind of sidelined for like 3 books now, and I don't get it. I don't like it. If there's one thing I don't really like about this book, it's, again, Tom, Perrin, Loyal, just there. They don't do anything. And those are characters I really, really like. Let's talk about Elaine for a second. I brought up that she's starting to bond with Avienda and IL Customs. She's starting to get back to her flippant ways of thinking she's better than everyone with her nose in the air kind of thing. That's why I find it hard to like Elaine. She was raised as a princess, so she doesn't know any better. I did like that. It's kind of like if you have a friend that's of a different religion or race than you, and you'll never be that religion or race, but you'd like to actually understand them more, so you can relate to them and have some cultural sensitivity. And I like that. I like that relationship. You would think that they're going to be all catty at each other because they're both in love with Rand or whatever. But I like that they're bonding. I like that she wants to know more about the Aiel. I like that she's one of the key figures in making sure that they lead that apology to Matt, which obviously meant more to me than it meant to him. With Birgitta, I'm going to say this is probably one of the coolest things I think Jordan has done yet. And that is, it seems like every male and female interaction in this book is either we are in love with each other or we are at each other's throats. And I feel like this is the first strictly platonic relationship between a male and a female in this book, that they are just friends and they get along with each other. And it's just because they drank together. I mean, they have them moments where it's just like, these two are cool with each other and that's it. And there's like, you think about it, there's like none of that in this book. Everyone is either romantically involved, previously romantically involved, want to be romantically involved, or they're just at each other's throats all the time, or boxing each other's ears, that kind of thing. Or light woman, things like that. So I really, really appreciated Jordan adding that wrinkle in there. And I kind of hope it stays that way. I don't want them to make a relationship out of those two. I hope it stays that way because I like there being genders in this of the opposite gender that get along. It seems like it's so rare in this story. So I really, really appreciated that. And also when she was getting drunk and it made Elaine get drunk, that was amusing. That was amusing. Nynaeve, look, I know Daniel Green's channel, there was something that he said where he gets mad when people who read the story and they call Nynaeve a bitch, and he doesn't like that. She's quite bitchy a lot, and I can see why people say that. I actually like her for the character because I know what she is. She's pissed off, and she is just frustrated with everybody because it's like if you hang around with your kids and you're like, why don't you get this? Why don't you understand things like I do? That's kind of how she is, and I get that. She thinks that she's smarter than everybody else. And once you understand that's how she is, just like I said in my my wish list for this story, I just want Nynaeve to be Nynaeve. Just let it all play. Don't try to do anything. She just be yourself, right? Well, the biggest thing about this, I think the biggest development for her, besides marrying Lan, is that she is no longer shielded, meaning she can now channel without having to be angry. Before she had to be angry to channel. If I'm read that correctly, now she can channel at any time. So I said after Lord of Chaos that I think Nynaeve should be the Amelin. I understood why they raised Egwene now. But I was like, if you're doing this off of power alone, I don't see anyone in the story right now that's more powerful than Nynaeve. You know, she can cure stilling and gentling. She can channel now without any restrictions. She. At this point, I think she's the most powerful person in the story besides Rand, and that's wow, it's quite a bit. But again, I think she has to be the worst at apologies of all time. Let's see here. There was a really funny quote that Nynaeve said in the story that I wanted to read here. And it just goes to show how she's so oblivious to others sometimes. And also very hypocritical on their behavior when it's in regards to herself. And here's what it says. I do so want to understand, Nynaeve. I would hate to think I'm going to kick you the length of Mulhara for nothing. Nynaeve's eyebrows drew down. Kick her? Elaine really was becoming violent, spending so much time with Aviendha. Someone ought to slap the sense into this pair. So she's going to sit there and say that someone else is becoming violent and then have a violent thought. So again, she's just completely oblivious to everyone else sometimes. Egwene's main purpose in this book is just to bring Lan back in the story. And that's good enough for me. So I don't get to complain about Egwene in this book. So there's that. I think she only had like 3 chapters, but I believe they were the longest in the book. And that's cool and all. I didn't really even care for the part of the story where she's basically getting 2 people to swear loyalty to her or stuff like that. Okay, yeah, she's a kid president at this point. That's fine. That's all I really needed from her in the story. And like I said, she brought back Lan in the story, so that's cool. So Lan, yes, he's back, sort of. Like I say, he still has less than like a dozen lines. He's still bonded to Morel, but he did say that it's until Morel can find a replacement. And I said no, it was easy to see that he was always going to end up bonded to Nynaeve. And now that they're married, it's only a matter of time. So personally, I'm just kind of happy that storyline's going to end. What I'll be interested to see is if he does bond to Nynaeve, what happens when/if Moraine does come back. So there we go. Why I think that Moraine's coming back is because it's a line that Min says in one of her viewings. She says one of the only viewings she's ever got wrong was that Moraine was going to be very important to Rand in the last battle. So that to me says, okay, she's coming back, right? Who knows? Who knows? I just feel like that's way too popular of a character to have only been there for 5 books. Maybe I'm just clinging on to hope because Moraine, my girl. Tom, background character. Again, I think he's only here to chuckle that, Matt's on the verge of getting raped. Loyal, yeah, he's writing his book. That's it. Here's what I'm going to say. I feel like knowing what I know about Brandon Sanderson and reading Stormlight is that no character ever takes the bench. No character ever disappears for an entire book, is in 2 chapters, does nothing, and then you don't hear from him again. They always have something to do. So what I'm saying is I'm looking forward to when Sanderson takes over this series, when he's going to take these background characters like Perrin, like Tom, like Loyal, like Lan, and he's actually going to give them something to do. It's going to feel more balanced. I feel like he's going to come in and he's going to fix those characters. That's not really a slight on Jordan. I feel like he's just run out of things for those characters to do, and he's just kind of keeping them around now because, hey, they were there at the beginning. That's just a prediction. I don't know this for a fact. That's just where I'm starting to lean, where I'm, 8, 9, 10, 3 books away from where Sanderson starts to step in. So that's what I'm kind of looking forward to there. But as for new characters, I want to talk about Cadsuane, because I feel like she's basically a Moraine replacement in that she's kind of... It's like when you have a coworker that you really like and they leave and then they replace it with a coworker who's important in the same regard, but you don't like them as much. I kind of feel like that's what it is. She's kind of like a necessary evil. She's a medicine that Rand needs to take. I guess it's really just kind of more how brash she is. Where Moraine, I felt like she was stern, but she was also compassionate. And Cadsuane, she actually slaps him once for using Balefire, which maybe was necessary. Hey, you guys are using Balefire a little too liberally here. Which I feel like is creating continuity errors. And give me a second. But as far as her Cadsuane, it's saying that Min tells Rand that Cadsuane basically she has to teach him and the Ashaman something that they're not going to like, and then that's kind of like the end of it. She talks about I think when he's naked later, she's talking about smacking on the ass and stuff. So it's very hard to like Cadsuane, at least from this book. Like I said, I believe she's going to be an important character. If she's not, and you guys are laughing at me right now, who knows? It seems like she's going to be an important character going forward. Like I said, I feel like she was on the cover of this book for a reason, and that's the Kindle version, in case you're wondering, because I know she's not on this one. We got like 60-year-old looking Rand on the cover of this one for whatever reason. But I don't know. Going forward, I'm going to keep my eye out for her, and obviously what this is she is supposed to teach Rand and the Ashaman. Let's talk about my likes for this book. Like I said, no secret, I really like the Rand and Min development. I like them ending. I liked him ending the Nynaeve and Lan pursuit that's been going on since book 1. Glad that's over. And I like the Mat chapters that were not rapey. I felt like there was a lot less sitting around doing nothing in this book. My big drawback from Fires of Heaven was that the middle act with like stuff like them joining the circus and sitting around campfires, you could have took that out of the book and nothing changed. At least that's how I felt. If it comes back to pay off later, okay. But yeah, there was less of that, and I like the Shan-Chan showing back up. We got less of the Rebel Aes Sedai. Not that I dislike the Rebel Aes Sedai, just I've got enough of those chapters. I didn't really need any more of it. Yeah, okay, showed that Egwene is actually, it's like, okay, I know that you guys raised me to Amelin because you think you can control me, but that's not going to happen. So I like her actually kind of taking control there. Cool. That's all I really need from this book. So the little bit of Rebel Aes Sedai I got in this, I was fine with it. That's all I needed. Dislikes. In case you didn't know, I did not like the whole Mat raping thing. What really, really, really annoyed me with it, though, is when the Supergirls start accusing Mat of even taking it. You pinch all the girls' bottoms and stuff, and basically accuse him of being a ladies' man, and then say, "Oh, and you're taking advantage of Tylan," and he flips out. Like, yo, I tried to get away from her, and she's doing that to me. And instead of being like shocked and consoling, they like laugh at him. They think it's humorous, and I'm sorry. Why is that funny? Why is someone being forced to have sex against their will? Why is that funny just because it's a guy? So yeah, that really, really annoyed me. This might be one of those things where it's like a sign of the times when it was written kind of thing. I don't know. I always say don't put 2019 politics into something that you're reading, that's a fantastical world, something like that. But as a guy, it was very uncomfortable reading that because thinking, wow, not only are they not thinking it's a big deal, they're actually kind of like chuckling at him. I just thought it was awful. I hated it. It made me like him less, especially Elaine. Most people seem to hate Nynaeve. I think I just started to hate Elaine a little bit. And then to cap it all off, he basically has like Stockholm syndrome at the end. He's like, "Hey, you know what? When we come back, I'll chase you and it'll be okay." What? No, it was bad. I hated it. Did not like it at all. I already talked about Paraloil and Tom just sitting there with nothing to do. Biggest dislike, more gays. Children of the Light. If you're not going to... I find the Children of the Light incredibly boring. Like Pedron Niall, I think. I believe he got killed in this book and didn't even care. When Padon Fane was with him, it was kind of interesting. But to me, the Children of the Light thing kind of... That story loop ended for me with the Battle at Two Rivers in Shadow Rising. I didn't really need any more after that, so I don't need any of that. I don't need any more gays. Okay, cool. More gays has abdicated her throne. Can she go away now? Can the Children of the Light go with her? Don't need any more of that. The big question, though, is did you find this book sloggy or not? I'd say not. I understand reading it now why people might have thought, okay, this is where the series started to slow down, because it is a lot of character development, which, like I've said, you've got books that are this long with this many characters. Why are we not developing the characters? I feel like we're developing some characters, specifically the Supergirls. Like ever since Dragon Reborn, it's been all about the Supergirls. And I feel like this one we finally got Mat. We finally got in the head of Rand a lot, and we finally got Min. So you got the development from Mat, Rand, and Min that I've been needing. Not that Rand has been like not developed at all, but you got some POV chapters finally, since he's starting to get stronger. And I needed those. And I needed a lot of those too from Min's perspective watching Rand. It really, really was cool. I liked that quite a bit. And again, not as many Supergirls chapters. I mean, the Ibu Dar stuff, said the stuff with the kin was kind of sloggy, but not really. Not really. Again, I would say Fires of Heaven was a slog more than this for me. And I know that's crazy. I know a lot of people love that book. But I had a pretty good time with this. I liked it. I'd probably, I'm not going to start doing rankings or whatever, but just saying if I'm at the halfway point right now, I'm not ready to stop. This book definitely doesn't make me want to stop, other than the More Gays chapter. So, yeah, I liked it. I liked that it was kind of slower. Or not slower, I'm sorry. It's kind of smaller, which is funny that you can call this small. But ever since Shadow Rising, I felt like the books have gotten thicker and the font size has gotten smaller and the word count has gotten larger. I feel like this was kind of brief. It's crazy to call a 650-page book brief, but compared to those other ones, just 41 chapters, there was a lot less of the just random character POVs, and there's a few. But I like it when it does that, like with the Forsaken. Stuff like that. I like getting this thing from the Forsaken's point of view. It's a nice touch. But overall, man, hey guys, I liked it. I liked it quite a bit, and I can't wait to keep going. And to Path of Daggers, which, by the way, Path of Daggers, coolest cover in the original artwork of any of the books. Path of Daggers, the cover. These original covers are hit or miss for me. This one's okay, except for, like I said, Rand being like 40. It's really weird. But as far as when I start Path of Daggers, it is not going to be as long of a wait this time, guys. I've told you guys on this channel before I like to counterbalance stuff and say if I'm reading something fantasy, I like to counterbalance it with some science fiction or horror. What I did with this one is I was reading the fourth Red Rising book by Pierce Brown. I like those quite a bit. Right now, I started reading Dresden Files, and I'm counterbalancing Dresden Files with Conan. But those are, well, they're kind of similar. I mean, one's urban fantasy, one is sword and sorcery. So it's kind of similar, so that kind of defeats the purpose there. But they're both short. I already read the first Dresden book. I'm in book 2 now. Those are so short, I figured I was going to do the Dresden books together in a review, talk about books 1 and 2. Spoiler, I really like it so far. It's a good time. Conan, very, very cool. Very, very cool. I will get into all this stuff in those, but once I finish those two, I plan to do a Path of Daggers at the same time I do Red Rising 5, which is Dark Age. So that's going to be my kind of balance. So I'm going to start wanting to cross over characters in Wheel of Time and Red Rising at some point. So it's going to be very, very amusing. But yeah, the Conan books are very short. It's like 160 pages, the Coming of Conan. And then you got the Dresden Files books, which literally you can read in a couple of days. It's very, very easy reads. So I would say by, Monday, Tuesday next week, I'll probably be starting on Path of Daggers. So it definitely will not be as long of a wait as before. But you guys that have been with me since the beginning of this, man, thank you. It's so great that I know that a lot of people out there do just Wheel of Time videos because they get so much traffic. And while I won't deny, yeah, my most popular videos on this channel, if they aren't First Law, they're Wheel of Time. I understand that. But that's why these reviews are so much longer, because it's obviously very meaningful, and like other fantasy series, there's so much to talk about, and that's why I can't do non-spoiler reviews of Wheel of Time books. I have to talk about them, and really it's the feedback I get from you guys. If I didn't get the comments and feedback from you guys like I did, this channel would never have kept going. So I mean, it's only 6 months ago this channel didn't exist, and now it's growing every day, and I love that, and I love talking with you guys. And please hit the comments below, even if you're a first-time viewer. Hit the comments, talk. You like what you saw, hey, think about subscribing, because I'm going to keep doing all these, and I can't wait to talk to you guys about it. So thank you for watching, and I will talk to you guys soon.